Hi guys, this is Yesenia Vazquez-Rosa. Welcome to our show, Going Vertical. And what we're gonna talk about today is breaking ground. Last week we talked about how to get your funding. So today we're gonna cover breaking ground in just a few minutes, and let's hear about our sponsors out there right now. If you will, like, share, comment, and if you have any questions, please shoot them out there to us.
Propelio TV, sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batchskip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifener.
Hi guys, welcome back. Again, I am your host, Yesenia Vazquez-Rosa, and I'm here with Chris Fast, my co-host. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about breaking ground. And last week we talked about getting funded, how we get funded, whether it's your own money, whether it's PML, private money lending,
bank money, hard money.
Yes, all that good stuff. So, so let's, I guess, just tell us from your experience, from your lens of the build and breaking ground. What does that look like from your end with your guys on the ground when you're on the ground?
So, first things first. Hopefully everybody out there is already at the stage you're ready to build. That's kind of where we're picking up today. If you may still have some other issues to sort out, but as soon as you're ready to go and everything is approved and green lighted, then that's where we're kind of talking about from today, the standpoint of you are ready to start. Everything's paid for. So in breaking ground, the first step is that.
So your design's paid for, you got your design, you got your permits, your permits are stamped.
So the city's gonna have a few requirements. Sometimes before you can even break ground, most of the time all simultaneously, but you've got to get your trash box up. You've got to get your billboard put up with all your permits, your plans, your whatever they require there. Some cities are going to require possibly a construction driveway. Breaking ground also is going to include land prep. Is there a tree in the way? Did you remove it prior to any approval? Does the land need to be prepped now for your forms and your concrete? That's kind of where we're going to encompass today's episode all about. And in a perfect world, some of all this could be really easy and be done within a week if you're really planned out and the weather's nice. But in a lot of cases, everything bites you in the rear end and happens at different times, or the city shuts you down because your trash box isn't the right size or shape or functional. So
now is that by the city and state, or that's state? That depends on the state, right?
The city.
The city?
Every different. I mean, they're all going to requare you to have a trash box, but I'm using that as a funny point because ours either will fall down or somebody will fill it up and they'll get pissed at you. But all of this is part of the new construction phase. There's all these requirements. So we'll just pick a particular point to start at. Supposing that you've got your T-pole ready to go. Some people don't like to put those in until later, but we try to get them in right at the beginning so everybody's got what they need when they get there. That's going to also have its own inspection. It's a T-pole inspection. Land clearing doesn't really have any inspections, but again, your concrete and your form guys aren't going to come out and work unless the area where their work is going to commence is flat and ready to rock and roll. So some concrete guys and form guys will have their own land clearing, land prep guy that works for them, and a lot don't. In the new construction world, I find a lot as being in the field, since we do this all ourselves, is we've got to have a different guy for damn near every step. And it becomes a big scheduling issue, unlike those of you that use the GCs. So first things first, is your land ready? Is your lot ready? Is it prepped? Is your driveway or your gravel ready if the city or the subdivision requires that? That's a dump truck load of stuff. So step one is prepping the lot, getting ready to get the forms in. In my world, it might be slightly different than yours where you've just got to make sure your GC does everything and look over him. But first thing is getting the land right, the driveway, and then we got to move to the forms. Forms are always going to be a part of concrete. And once again, they have their own inspection. So breaking ground in today is its own section because there's a lot of initial inspections that have to take place before you proceed to getting that pad in.
How long does it usually take you to, let's say the stars are aligning and you got great weather, there's no, you know, everyone's there to work and no one's sick, no one's calling out on you. How long does it actually take you to get the lot cleared, right? And how big are normally your lots? Is it a couple of days or one day?
Yeah, so
usually?
Obviously everyone's different. Most of our lots are all, I would say, your stereotypical regular size 50 by 100 lots. Some are out in the country sometimes and they need to be cleared, which we budget a couple of days for that if we're actually taking down trees. Because again, the guys that come and prep for the concrete guys are not always the same guys that take trees down.
Right.
So even though we're referring to it as land clearing, they're separate people. And every time you involve a different person, it's another day or two wait, hopefully that quick, so you don't have to overpay and get someone else out there. So in most cases, we don't have to take a lot of trees down, or we try to do it during the permit phase, because you don't have to have permission to take something down, but if you include it as part of your plan pack, then you do. So we try to get that done sooner than later if it's not going to cost that much. But supposing that none of that was done and we're going straight from the point of breaking ground and getting everything going, we'll budget a day or two for any tree clearing, then another day or two for the actual lot pad prep. That can usually get done in one day if the soil's good, the weather's been nice. Those guys will not take their skid steers on wet dirt. And if they do, it's going to screw everything else up. You know, because another thing we forgot to mention is the drainage. All of your drainage plans also have to be submitted, and if those are really, really narrow and not very swaled, and the skid steers screw those up and the city guy comes out, he'll put a stop on you and make you redo your drainage. So anyways, just getting to the point before setting forms, we might budget for a week's worth of time in order to get everything ready for forms.
Right. So it's very interesting because on my end, like even currently, I'm building a small little subdivision, and it's a bit different. I had to go in and do a whole meeting with the whole entire planning division, and the tree guy was there. So I don't know if you've ever been in these type of meetings, but I love trees, I get it, you know, but when you're thinking about building a subdivision and then the tree guy, the representative there is talking about like, well, we need to come to your line, make sure that none of the trees are moved before you do any clearing because this and that. And I'm like, I almost giggled. I wanted to giggle, but
Are they requiring you to have like one tree per lot, like stuff like that?
Yes, they were trying to, you got to space them out. You can't just go in there and run them through like we want to, right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see. So even for subdivision may be different than for just one lot. Right?
It is and it isn't. So like in the city of McKinney, I think it is, I think they do have a requirement of 1 or 2 trees. I'd have to check with the office on that. But again, if it's in the way of our pad, it's got to come down. We'll typically try to plan around that if it's savable, but no, we'll typically have to plant some small trees if we clear our lot too much. But working in the confines of a single lot versus a neighborhood, if it's in the way, it's got to come down, and we'll deal with the rest later. And they won't usually hold us up for that. They'll let us finish out before we plant trees once we're totally done with everything, so that helps. But yeah, subdivisions would be a whole different ball game.
Right.
So
and it takes like for mine, it's taking way longer than just a week to clear it, right? But it's a little bit bigger and all that. So far, we've got our funding, right? We started our prep, which is clearing that lot, depending on how long that'll take us. Normally, 50 by 100, it'll be, you said a week, right?
Well, we budget
Couple
for a
days.
week, but I mean, a day or two should get that,
Right.
form ready.
But that's the key, budgeting for it, right? Because you never know if the weather or you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, let's jump ahead and talk about the forms. I mean, the forms is part of the concrete phase, but it's not, because it has its own inspection, and they want to make sure those forms are the way they want them. The rebar's the way it needs to be. The rebar can't touch the dirt, all of that good stuff. And very, very recently, on one of our builds in Collin County, we were hung up for, if not a whole month, pretty close to a month, just on the form phase. And we probably, round numbers, lost a couple $1,000 on all of that work, because while the forms were ready, it would rain the night before the inspector showed up and then screw something up. It would either knock a board out of alignment, or the trenches would get wet, stuff would sink, rebar would touch. That literally happened so many times. We actually at one point had to take everything down and redo it.
Oh, gosh.
Then again, we'd have to come back, and there's a lot of old school tricks that even up till now, we've had to find people that are really good at their trades, like putting lime in the trenches,
Right.
putting masonry products like just flat out bricks underneath the rebar where it's going into the ground, building a pad all down in the mud. So being prepared for all that, going back to one of our previous episodes, a couple episodes ago, that all needs to be written within your plan and prepared for all that. And every time the city tells you no, there's a fine. That's, so aside from your holding costs, if you were like us, that's a month extra payment, plus the cost of the extra screw up. What else am I missing? And the red tag fees.
The red tag.
So again, I'm talking really negative, and I'm not trying to, but I really want to give everybody the understanding that if you're prepared for all this, it's not going to be a shock. But if you're not prepared, you're going to get sticker shock and freak out. So anyways, that's the first thing with breaking ground is getting everything ready to start the building process, which is concrete and then framing, and then everything at that point becomes really similar to a regular build, fix and flip, gut job, fire job, any of the above.
So that's a good point. So that first step, compared to in a flip world, that first step of flipping home is when we're going in there and we are basically demoing, right?
And don't forget about your porta crapper.
Yes,
that's got to be there too. I always forget that one.
I know.
They'll shut you down for not having that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And that's on both angles, right?
What?
It's kind of like on both angles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the new construction world, and especially when the project starts, there's a lot of moving parts. Like I said, I always go back to the trash bin. We've been shut down countless times for that being full or falling down or sometimes not there. We have been shut down. I mean, again, in the breaking ground phase, it still I always want to tie back to our previous episodes of preparedness, because you need to probably have every person that's going to go to your job site that works for you, they all need to have at least 3 full plan sets in their truck, and all be prepared to replace the plan sets on site. Because as soon as that inspector shows up for any of the above, or even on a surprise inspection drive-by, and he wants to check if your plans are in the tube or posted or wherever they need to be, and they're not there, you're done.
Right.
We get screwed with that in Collin County more than anywhere. So
that's a great point. What are some of those things that we can think about ahead of time? Okay, so even for me, okay, I'll have the conversation with the GC. Hey, make sure that we're okay for this and that, and make sure that we're ready for that inspection. Every time we're going to be going into an inspection, I have a conversation of, hey, how are we doing with this? How are we doing with that? And do you need anything from me? How can I help? Right? That's the relationship that I have with the agency. How about you? What would you say to viewers is one of those, I guess, few things out there that you can just be aware of and be thinking of? to prepare?
I mean,
that?
being
For the
prepared,
inspections. That's
being
why.
prepared for inspections, I would love to say that, hey, as long as you're following the rules or whatever, or learning your craft, you're going to be fine. But it's just not the case. I mean, you get one inspector who's a real stickler for something being misworded, crooked, or otherwise. I mean, I don't know how many times John's come back to the office just mad as hell because he got shut down for something so minor he didn't even think of. And I can't think of a good example right now, but trust me, if you do this long enough, it will happen. And sometimes maybe, hopefully, you don't hear about him. Your GC just takes all that, and as part of what he's making for his money or doing for his money, he just doesn't tell you about all those crappy little small details. But for us, again, the things to look out for would be always making sure that the porta potty's clean and usable. And usually the companies you hire will have a maintenance schedule on that. But if it fills up and gets nasty too fast, you could get shut down for that. Making sure your trash box is always emptied out once a week, if not sooner. You'll get shut down if it's overflowing. And trust me, all your neighbors will use it. It's just constant management. It's upkeep. It's similar to a flip, but it's not until you get into the inside of the house.
Right.
It's easy, but laying out all these steps are all part of the overall package of new construction. Again, going back to the forms, making sure they're, again, not just the way they're supposed to be, but hopefully the weather holds up and they stay put. So that would be obviously our first step there, and what I deal with on a daily basis being in the field per se, or those people that work for us. And in your case, hopefully your headache's not quite as bad managing someone else, but making sure they do their job.
Right, yeah. And for the most part, for me, the headaches are when we have rain, right?
Yeah.
When we have to hold, or when a machine breaks or something, and then that delays us on days, things like that. So the delays, because that's when I get the call. Hey, we won't be on site because of this and this for this how many days, da 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 da. Right. So those are the things that are kind of like the hurdles on my end, or what you would say irritating.
Right.
But you have no control of it. I have no control of it. And honestly, on your end, even you don't have control of it as a GC.
No. So. None of us can control the weather or the sub showing up or any of that. I mean, maybe in your world, hopefully it's a little better mentally because you only have to kind of maybe watch over one person or yell at one person. And in ours, where we have our main construction manager, John, handling most of it, and then, Brittany steps in and really knows a lot of what to do and be ready for. But there's no way to get past the breaking ground phase that could be simply, and I say getting past, there's no way to do it super simple other than just hoping everything kind of lucks out, versus being prepared for it to take all the way up to a month in the event weather continues to bite you in the rear end and you get, your red tags and stuff like that. So that's probably some of my biggest irritations with getting ready to start the whole process. And breaking ground ties back into the last episode too, with your holding costs, your payments to your lenders, if you're making payments, if you're not making payments, all the stuff we talked about there, and getting your subs paid, because just because the forms don't necessarily pass inspection doesn't mean those guys aren't going to want the bulk of their money because they've done their job. I wouldn't advise paying them in full by any means, because until you pass inspection, they don't get paid in full. But it also doesn't mean they're not going to want 50 or 70, 80% of their money because they did their job.
Yeah.
And that ties back in, I think, with anybody in real estate, managing their budget, managing their draws, managing their subs, inspecting their work, so on and so forth. Probably similar to you with before you pay your GC. I mean, hopefully he's not stroking tons of checks coming to you because he's hard up for $100,000.
So that's a great point, and let's talk a little bit about how that looks on after this short break that we have to take. So we've talked about prepping our lot, okay, clearing it, and then getting the foundation on there, right? And that's what we've talked about for now. And then when we come back, we're going to keep that conversation going. So be sure to like, comment. And if you feel like you know someone who could learn from this, please share this video. And we'll be right back in a short message.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. Okay, so Chris, we hear a lot of different stories about sometimes we have issues with soil. What does that look like? What kind of issues can you actually possibly have with soil, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. And when we need to bring soil from another from somewhere else because the soil is bad, what kind of things have you seen on your end, and what are some examples that we can share?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Again, it's real easy for us to jump ahead sometimes and run in and say, do this, get your forms, call the inspection, pour your concrete. But yeah, in reality, sometimes you can't even put your forms in, and if your soil isn't right, or if you have to. We haven't personally had too many issues with that. We've had a couple of lulls in some of our areas that we've had to bring dirt in, but I have heard and known a couple of people who have had various different issues where they've had to bring in, I don't quote me on this, but they've had to bring in, I believe it was 2 different types of soil. One, I don't know, call it clay or something. I don't know, whatever it is, the guys told them what to do, and that's the point of the engineers. Bring in this, put it down, let it sit, bring this dirt in, let it sit. For us, we've had to fill in some spaces, but the wonderful part about Texas soil sometimes is it's known to crack, shift, move otherwise. So when we do have to bring soil in or level or move dirt around, we actually prefer to let it sit in a perfect world, let it sit for 30 days, and depending on how much you're bringing in, so it actually settles in compacts. Like if anybody's ever had to fill in a swimming pool or maybe fill in an old burn pile or something on a piece of property, you know that as soon as you fill it in, even if you're tamping it as you go, in a little while, it's going to actually sink more. So we've had to make sure, because as a builder, everybody should know, whether you claim to be a builder or not, if you build a new house, you are on the hook for your state's law. Let's not get into that, but your state's particular law on your warranty for that house, and it's applicable. So if you have a nice dip in your soil and it cracks the foundation, you're quite possibly going to be on the hook for that. So that's something to consider when you bring dirt in. I don't know what your experiences are with that, but yeah, we've had to fill dirt in quite a bit, and then we just want to make sure that we get it packed down, either with, if it's a little bit of dirt with the little rabbits, or bring a steamroller if you freaking have to, or something heavy. But yeah, I've been lucky so far with not having to do too many crazy things, but I've heard some serious horror stories with that.
I haven't had any horror stories, and so far,
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
happy about that. But I've heard of other people having these horror stories, and it's a very important factor, because foundation is the key to that house. The foundation is, if you don't have a solid foundation, yes, the home eventually moves. Yeah, the earth moves. Maybe there's earthquakes. Maybe there's things here in Texas that shifted. But the key is, if we're able to put down a true solid foundation, which includes, we may have to bring in some new soil to mix in here, then in the long run, the homeowner will have a better solid foundation and less issues with their foundation.
And on that note, something that we haven't discussed directly, because again, as everyone knows, similar to anything in real estate, there is a lot of moving parts in our world. And one thing I don't think I've mentioned in the past was that if you do a lot of in-depth research when you first buy your land, such as did it ever have a house on it before, how old was that house? If it was a newer house, maybe it burned down and they dug it all up, there might have been a pool, or again, if they dug it up, they might have left some slab or some crap down in the soil. So you check your deed history, check your land history, check all your surveys. If there's a creek nearby, was it ever a bigger creek? Did it ever flood? Because that could all affect the soil. So all of those things, maybe you could go back and listen to the other episodes and apply this piece of information to all that in your land acquisition phase and your getting prepared phase of what should I be looking out for? Because anything with the soil and getting prepared to build or breaking ground now, it could cost you. It could have effects on your timeline. I was going to say something else. I kind of forgot there, trailing off into these rabbit holes. But yeah, it's check all of that out before you build. It'll help with getting the solid foundation you need to proceed with the house.
Right. So, that's a key point. Make sure that your foundation is, or your soil. If you need to go get a soil test, go get it done. It's
most people require it now
between,
too, I think.
You're gonna spend maybe between $500 and $1,000. It's not expensive. I'd rather you guys be spending that amount of money instead of 20, 30, 35,000 because, oh my gosh, my soil, we didn't catch this part. We need to come and bring more soil or it's just another crew maybe, or you just never know, right? It may not be 30 grand, but it could be, right? You just never know. So getting that soil test is key, right?
And your a lot of what we talk about is focused on single house building, but in the subdivision type phases, are there any bigger hurdles there that you have to contend with?
In the preparation stage that we talked about in our prior episodes, I ensure that my soil is good, and I make sure that I'm talking to that engineer and the GC, and that we're all in lockstep as we're doing this what I like to call due diligence.
Yeah.
Even though for me it's due diligence, right? So if I don't go without doing a soil test when it comes to subdivision. Lot is very different. It's kind of like, we'll see what happens sometimes. I don't always go and get a soil test, but depending on the project, depending on how big it is.
Yeah.
So.
And the other, another good part, thinking ahead, trying to give people actionable steps here is in getting prepared to build and breaking ground is also planning ahead for your access that you're going to need. Sometimes our lots have an alleyway behind them, and sometimes they don't. So in planning for the concrete pour, hopefully you've got your plans from previous budgeting, what we talked about in other episodes. You're going to know whether or not you've got to have a concrete pump, or depending on the cost of certain things, there's been sometimes where the concrete pump was going to be more expensive than it was to just pour extra heavy gravel in this particularly big lot we had. So coming back to just thinking all about the different phases here of just getting to pouring and breaking your ground is your access for all the different things you're going to have to do while you build. So, lot design and stuff like that.
So, with that being said, making sure that, okay, this is where the entrance is going to go, okay, and preparing that, for the build, for the actual build, right? So that could be those conversations for me on my end are also done in this, while I'm doing the soil test, while I'm doing all these things of I guess preparing for it, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I not dictate, but that's where the conversations are for me, So we've covered so far we go in and we get cut down those trees, right? Clear the lot, okay? Once we clear that, making sure that the soil is good, making sure we got a soil test and we're good. And then we are actually doing the pour, right?
Yeah, the pour comes obviously after the forms are past inspection and clear to go, and then that's going to be literally the foundation of the rest of the project is the concrete. So making sure that everything is set up for that is of utmost importance. Mm-hmm. You know, once you're free and clear there. But, you know, again, backtracking actually before the pour, going all the way back to forms, is I'm kind of leaving out the steps of making sure the plumbing and electric are in, because again, we kind of jump ahead with forms being a part of the concrete process.
Right.
But getting the forms set up is only the first part of that phase, where again, you've got your other inspections for your electric and plumbing that go down into the ground. We haven't really touched on that. And I wasn't trying to, because again, as we go through this new construction, trying to make it step by step for people, you want it to stay linear, but there's always going to be constant backtracking for me on, you know, plumbing, because most people just think of plumbing as it's already there, or hey, once the slab's there, you get these little white pipes sticking up. But again, the
that's
forms
actually done before the pour,
they have,
the actual
you know,
pour.
Once the forms are there, then they come in and they cut the soil. They get everything gridded out. If you guys have ever seen all those little weird looking squares inside of a form set, then that's for your plumbing, your electric, everything like that. You have to get all your plumbing ran, and you have to tap the city line for your sewer, and you know that's all separate inspections that you have to pass before pouring that concrete.
Exactly.
So knowing about your soil, knowing that the land's flat and ready for concrete has to be done before the forms go in. The forms have to go in before all the plumbing and electric get dropped, and then you have to pass those inspections too. It sounds easy. It is pretty easy to say, and I kind of breeze through it pretty quickly. But again, just knowing that is all part of the steps. Hopefully, you didn't just go pour a slab with no concrete. I mean, no plumbing under it, because then you're gonna have a lot of work cut out for you.
So, how we on my end, how we manage that is, we're having meetings. Although the GC subs everything out, he has his crew and all that. I'm part of that, and I know the reason why is because I know, okay, the electrical guy he's in sync. He knows what's going on. The plumber guy, if these guys are talking, the plumber, the electrician, if they're talking and they're in sync with the GC, and you know that's gonna help you with, you know, just knowing, hey, everyone's in sync. We're gonna get this. These steps are being met, and they talk. Okay, man, I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna do this, and then a day or two later, then you come in and you're going to go do this. I don't know on your end how is that? I guess communication or that whole shebang. How does that come together?
Well, since we are the builder,
right?
You know, as systematic as I like to pretend everything is, and you know, it's sometimes it's very cowboy. You know, it's sometimes, you know, and the other thing is like your GC takes a lot off of your shoulders with dealing with the funny crap we have to deal with. Like, plumbers, I mean, great plumbers, but again, in all the great plumbers that could be watching this show, they're not always the same when it's new construction, or again, the plumbing companies that you hire are going to charge you more than the guy that just does new construction plumbing. The funny part about that is, and everyone says, oh, you get what you pay for. Yeah, that's true. But again, as long as you manage some of these guys, which takes a lot of effort and heartache,
it does.
Long story short, we've showed up to sites and seen our pipes insulated with carpet.
Wow.
Carpet wrapped around the pipe,
Wow.
zip tied or duct taped together, and they'll tell us, no, it's fine, it'll pass, I promise. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So it all comes back to, you know, meetings for you probably make a lot more sense than us, whereas our meetings are more to the tune of where are we at on our calendar? We have a little build calendar. Has this happened? Have you skipped ahead and have you ordered this yet? Have you set up this?
That's a good tip, though. That's a good tip because, you know, you can either each day, if you're new to this, right? Each day, right? You could know, okay, what are they doing on this day? What are they doing on this day? Or it could be by week. By the end of the week, all these items are going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no issues, if there's no holdups,
correct.
right?
And the calendar, what it's supposed to do for us is keep us on track for thinking ahead. You know, like going back to the very beginning of this episode, is the form guy on notice that the land clearing or the site prep is supposed to be done on Thursday?
Right.
But waiting until that's done to schedule it is the way a lot of new guys start, and it's okay, but it ends up costing you days. So if you have, let's say, a private investor that is getting an equity piece, he's going to look at that, well, you know, hey, you were only able to build 2 houses for me this year with the same allocated dollars. You know, why can't we get 3 in there? Variations of that conversation always come back to time is money, and that's one good point, is that we try to let the calendar keep us moving forward in the right direction. So our meetings will sometimes be very quick, sometimes group text conversations on one of our apps is, hey, was this done? What was this? Or it's literally just John saying, this is where we're behind, this sucks, this got screwed up. But full circle back to again, always our back and forth of GC versus doing it yourself. I'd say we put up with a lot from our subs, but we're getting that maybe partially because we're seeking price over certain things, because we can control the quality as long as we inspect it diligently, and we do have a constant need to let them know we are inspecting everything daily. You know, surprise inspections. There's never a day where they don't think we're coming by. But again, you'll show up and your pipes will be wrapped in carpet or you know, some pipe.
I haven't seen that yet.
Some pipe doesn't have a cap on it that's supposed to be capped for them to let them know it holds water, all that good stuff. But again, subdivisions versus lots is lots. 90% of the time for us, we have to tap the city line because they're undeveloped lots. But if they're developed, you have to find, which is another fun process. You have to find where the sewer's already coming into the property. Hopefully it's not ancient, old cast iron, rusted out. And if it is, you got to fix it. All this comes back in the breaking ground phase, because if it involves digging up the dirt, that's what I'm trying to include in today's episode, is anything. You know, and again, sometimes it may seem like I'm running out of stuff to say because I don't want to jump too far ahead, only to come back, you know, in future episodes. But again, figuring out, is it a developed lot and where the sewer comes in, digging all that up, putting flags everywhere. You know, dig tests will help you a lot with certain aspects of your build and where underground utilities and stuff already are. Sometimes power poles are in the way. That's actually a big breaking ground phase there, is that for us around here, Encore is the big power company. And in some of these older lots that are legit lots, but they were never used as a lot, they'll have a power pole right in the middle or an old light pole. And you've got to get that moved. Power poles are way more difficult to get moved than light poles.
And that's a lot of cost, too.
It is. And sometimes it is way more than it's legitimately worth. There was one lot I think we bought or we almost bought, and we finally got the cost back. Not only the cost to do it, but they said they can only move it 5 feet in one direction only, and that still didn't give us enough clearance to do what we wanted to do, so we had to pass on the lot.
So if you come across that, you may just have to skip that lot and not even go
because
there.
all your due diligence could tell you on paper that lot is buildable and perfect soil, and you know, this, that, or the other all works great. But again, power lines have a whole different thing than light poles. But again, the light pole, there was one that was right in the middle of where we were going to put the house for some reason, and it still took them almost 2 weeks to come out and take that down. I mean, I wanted to knock it down countless times with our tractor, but nonetheless, getting off topic here. But yeah, all these different things that involved site prep, land clearing, digging up the land, moving stuff around, all have to be accounted for. And while we might make it seem like it's a long process, all of this is kind of done simultaneously. But again, hopefully you've assessed your lot, you've followed the other episodes, you've got your own little calendar, so to speak, or your journal, and you know what you're going to do in step by step as you go through it. And as you go through it, any audible changes that will affect other stuff, you can move the pegs around the board accordingly. And in your case, your GC hopefully does all that for you, taking a lot of stress off.
Yes, but I also internally, we also keep track of everything to make sure that we're still on a timeline. We don't veer off too much on our timeline. So with that said, guys, we'll take another short break. Please like us, comment, and share, and love us. We'll be right back.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at propelio.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. So, as we're talking about, breaking ground. We've discussed. We kind of go back and forth to resource back to our prior episodes. So you guys really, if you need to go back and watch those episodes, that you do go and watch it. Each of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and whatever. So because we do go back and talk on those topics. So with breaking ground, it's right now we talked about, and the highlights of this episode has been breaking ground and clearing the lot, making sure our soil is good. Then we do the forms and make sure that
plumbing, electric, rebar, forms, trash bins, porta potties,
all that
gravel entryways if you have to have them. And something else that comes to mind for subdivisions, I know we're trying to slowly wind this down, is cleanup of the road. If you have erosion, and I totally forgot all about erosion control and construction fencing that has to go in and get inspected or at least approved prior to all these other steps being taken. But in a subdivision, more so than even in a existing lot area, they're going to really scrutinize your street cleanup if you have erosion come out. You're talking about having, I think, skid steers come down the road and pick up a lot of dirt and stuff. So even similar inside of an existing older subdivision or a non-subdivided area where we're just doing a lot, cleanup is a big issue. You can always be hit from the city if you have erosion issues, so your silt fencing's got to be good. Your construction fencing has to always stay intact, and trust me, those skid steers, those tractors, those dump trucks, even the porta potty people will knock your crap down. They will drive over your silt fences. So there's a constant maintenance that goes into all this. But again, like you were saying, when I talk, I kind of jump around a lot because there's so much that ties into the coming episodes and still stuff that ties into the last episode. So I don't want people to try to lose focus. Hopefully they can just take some notes here, because I don't want to talk ahead and immediately start talking about concrete and framing and lumber deliveries and scheduling everything. That's future, even though that immediately kind of does happen behind the form inspection. But there's so many things that we want to keep everybody focused on how to educate themselves from these episodes, take notes, kind of make some linear path. Unlike a fix and flip, there's not always a lot of going backwards, because as soon as you move forward, it's the next step. So, and I talk about fix and flips because I think that's where most people are familiar with. In our world, it's, I do a little bit of that other stuff too, but in our world, there is a constant feeling of circling back, especially when it comes to cleaning and rebuilding trash bins or putting up fences or being red tagged for something that we feel stupid, but it's the city requirement. So anyways.
So key note on that is, just keep your job site clean. Just like you want to keep it secured and safe, you keep it clean, right? So so neighbors don't get mad at you, so you don't get fined by the city, so you don't have,
Problems with the
problems
neighbors.
with anybody, like on the job site where someone could get hurt. You never know. Kids in the neighborhood could come when you're not there working and get hurt. Then what?
Keep out signs, no
So-
trespassing signs are good. Fencing and enclosing lots for safety, coming back to the security conversation from a couple episodes ago. That's all good for keeping, it's a cost, but it's all something just to be considered for
Right.
your build. So
Yes.
a lot of people will just have to figure that out for yourselves or ask us along the way, but trying to think here.
So
I don't
out
wanna
of
jump too
this,
far ahead.
out of this, what we've talked about so far for today's episode, Chris, what's like that one thing that you want them to really just, hey, this is that one thing, or two, whatever, the highlight.
It may not be a positive highlight, but again, it's trying to keep it real with everybody, not just rah, run out here and make a shitload of money. It's be prepared from that one from before, but it's knowing that the form inspections alone might take 3 to 4 weeks just to pass, and you might be staring at your lot with your thumb in your rear end waiting. That is a real possibility.
It's a great visual.
It's a real possibility that you could be stuck at some point for various different things. I mean, I could talk about future plumbing issues that you may have to stop and sort out a leak in the line somewhere. Those are all real possibilities. I mean, we had something happen, and we'll talk about this way later, where a test ball for testing something got lost somewhere, but the guy didn't frickin' tell us.
Oh.
And so the plumbing worked fine for a few phases, and we get to another phase only to find out, oh crap.
No.
We had to sort through the whole thing only to find out that the problem was way out in the yard, luckily, but we had to dig up half the yard to find the city
goodness.
pipes. Anyways, so all this being said, just knowing, the biggest takeaway is that knowing that something could go wrong is going to help, I think, keep you on track for scheduling things. I'm not saying this is how we do it, but perhaps if the entire week looks like rain, just don't set the forms. Just wait and deal with it later. Save yourself the hassle, even though the holding costs are the same, because you're still paying for a week of holding costs, but you're not dealing with a crew that's now mad that they have to wait longer to get paid. So sometimes keeping your labor happy is more important than just getting that part done. I don't know. That's my takeaway
And
for the moment.
that's a really good point, because again, when we talk about keeping your job site clean, especially in this phase, is very critical, because again, we're prepping your foundation of a home, right? I mean, something like that, something that got lost and someone didn't speak up, that will cause all these other
And it's going to
issues.
happen if you stay in
It
this game
will.
long enough, a lot.
Yes.
But again, the whole keeping it clean from the standpoint of this initial phase versus the future phase. Future phases have a lot more cleanup to talk about, but setting the precedence in the beginning,
Exactly.
I think, is going to determine how your job looks in the future when we talk about framing waste and lumber and crap getting thrown everywhere. So anyways,
Sweet.
so my takeaway is not necessarily positive. It's just, it's always that term we used, be prepared and expect. If you expect the worst, then everything will be great. If you expect everything to be roses and sunshine and unicorns, you're going to get a rude awakening somewhere along the way.
Well, we know that's not how it works. No. But that's in this episode, I guess, for preparing. What's our episode?
No, today's breaking
is
ground.
Breaking ground. And breaking ground,
But you have to stay prepared the whole time.
Right. Stay prepared the whole time when you're breaking ground and through all these episodes that we're going to give you. But these final thoughts from my end is, guys, just go back to the other episodes if you haven't, and catch up, right? So you understand more of where we're at with this episode and why we took the time.
Take notes, make a map.
Why we took the time, 50-something minutes on this episode alone, because it is very, very important that you that you break ground. Once you're breaking ground, that you really take a look at your soul, that you really take a look at how all these little steps come together. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. Keep your comments flowing on the replays. We'll continue to answer all the questions that you have out there. If you need to reach out, you can reach out to me at yeseniavazquez-rosa.com or PM me, and I'll gladly answer all your questions. Chris, is there a way that they can reach you?
Yeah, you guys can look me up on Facebook, call the office, email me. Any of those work. Fast Investments is our main company. You can get me there. Post your questions, email questions if it's something you don't want to post, but we prefer you to post everything or send it to Propelio, and we'll get it answered in the future on a Q&A episode or at the beginning of the next episode.
All righty, guys. Well, thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And check out Propelio TV. They have some awesome stuff out there. And
like the YouTube channel, like the Facebook, all of it.
Bye, guys.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Basket Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Life and Air.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.